Welcome back to Short Story Theatre, my friends. Today's story by Bill Russo is a tale from the richest neighborhood in all of Cape Cod. It's a place called the Shoe. As is often the case, money is about to prove why it is called the core of all evil. In truth, to the wealthy people of the Shoe, the money involved is so small it shouldn't matter, but regardless of the amount, money always matters. And now, here's Matthew with today's episode.
The wealthiest residents in all of Cape Cod live on a single street named Horseshoe Lane, about halfway between Hyannis and Provincetown. No, they are not Kennedys, Clintons, Obamas, movie stars or billionaire novelists. Fabulously rich politicians, theatrical people, and writers are merely summer residents and not actually a part of the island. But the inhabitants of the Shoe, as they call their street, are full-time year-round locals, and their wealth can match up with any American billionaire, who isn't named Walton, Bezos, or Gates. As stated, the people who live in the Shoe are tried and true locals, but their blood is not tired and stained like the old line Cape Codders who trace themselves back to the Mayflower, like the Crosbys, the Standishes, or the Nickersons. But the Shoe people are all at least second-generation Cape Codders, and for this reason they certainly cannot be lumped in with run-of-the-mill Washoe Shores. While their roots penetrate fairly far into the area's soil, their hands go even deeper, into the pockets of the area's 200,000 year-round residents and millions of summer residents, vacationers, and day trippers. The Shoe people own and operate many of the largest businesses on Cape Cod, and on the Cape, the biggest enterprises are those in the media, food, and hotel industries. If you've ever been to the region, you've eaten at their restaurants, read their newspapers, listened to their radio stations, and played in their parks and amusement places. Wealthy business people generally aren't friendly with their competitors, and in most places they barely talk to each other, but Cape Cod is different from any other area in the United States. The local business people are clubby, and feel like team members, with only one enemy, the national chains. The Shoe people have vanquished dozens of conglomerates that tried to set up shop on the island. They successfully shut down Red Lobster, the Outback, Old Country Buffet, Uno's Chicago Grill, Walmart, Lowe's, Home Depot, McDonald's, Wendy's, Burger King, and dozens of other national concerns, which cast greedy eyes on the pocketbooks and wallets of Cape Codders. The Shoe people have all been to Rome, London, and Paris. They've gambled in Vegas and played in Los Angeles, but they never stay long on the West Coast. It's too far from the ocean, they laugh. Their vacations are usually just 2 weeks long. They never stay anywhere more than 3 weeks, for on the 4th week, the 12 heads of the 12 families gather at one of the homes, for their ritual poker game. More than just a game, it's an event that begins with a banquet and ends with a low-stakes poker game, a tradition that goes back almost 20 years. The game is low stakes by design, so that no one is tempted to dangle large chunks of their fortune in front of a money grubber called Lady Luck. It was stated that the 12 heads of the families assemble on a monthly basis for their night of cards. The reason the game has 12 players is that there are just 12 homes in the Shoe. 5 of the spacious dwellings are in the original section, which was a dead-end street of 2,000 feet, with 400 square foot frontage for each house. That first section was built in the 1990s. At the turn of the century 7 more houses were constructed, 5 in a straight section of 2,000 feet parallel to the original part, which had been named Horse Lane. A curving section, 800 feet long, with 2 houses, connected the 2 straight parts, forming the horseshoe and prompting the name change to Horseshoe Lane. Each home has 400 square foot frontage and a total lot size ranging from 10 to 16 acres of woodland, with a few streams and tiny, pristine lakes that draw water from Cape Cod's largest lake, Long Pond in Harwich. All of the homes are built on the outside edge of the roadway, leaving an undeveloped forested middle section of more than 100 acres. The homes range from 10,000 to 15,000 square feet, more than 2 times large enough to be considered mansions, anywhere on Earth. It was stated that the poker game, though a highly anticipated event, is a low-stakes game. It is practically penny ante to the Shoe people. There is a strict limit for every game. At the start, each player purchases $20,000 worth of chips. If one player loses all his chips, the game ends. This inviolate rule was made to ensure that the games were always fun and only semi-serious, for a $20,000 loss once a month to any one of the players was like the average person losing $10 or $20. The system worked well for almost 2 decades, until one of the players, a Mr. John Hart, began conveniently forgetting to bring cash or checkbook to cover his losses. "I'll get the money to you during the week," he'd glibly tell the other players. Usually they forgot, and 4 weeks later by the time of the next game, the matter was never mentioned. But, one of the 12 players, was annoyed. Brad Stock had won more than $40,000, in a 4-month period from John Hart, and had not received a penny. He went to visit Hart, and confronted him in his office, at the wrinkled Welk restaurant, named after the official state shell of Massachusetts. The Welk was one of Cape Cod's most upscale dining establishments. The discussion got heated, with Hart promising to write a check at the next gathering. When the appointed evening came, Stock confronted Hart, who once again didn't bring the money. "I'll probably win tonight," he speculated, "and I'll turn all my winnings over to you." He did not win. He lost the $20,000 in short order, with most of the losses going to Brad Stock. Stock demanded payment, and called out Hart in front of the rest of the group. He informed Hart that if he did not pay at the next meeting of the shoe club there would be serious consequences. The game rotated from house to house, and it turned out that the next session was scheduled for Brad Stock's house. Prior to the Friday night game, Stock sent his family to their property on Martha's Vineyard for the weekend. He sent away most of his staff, keeping just enough to handle the banquet, after which all employees were told they could have the rest of the night off. As per custom, before the start of the game, all cell phones, tablets, and such, were checked at the door to ensure an uninterrupted game. John Hart, true to form, showed up with no money. Once again, he allowed that if he won, he would turn over his winnings. The night wore on and Hart lost the limit, $8,000 to Stock and $12,000 more split between the other 10 players. Enraged, Stock ran to a cabinet, and withdrew a pistol, firing off 10 rounds in a few seconds. He screamed that he intended to kill Hart. Everyone scattered. They raced to the front door, but it was locked. They dashed through the dining room, into the service area, and then the kitchen. The back door was unlocked. Followed closely by Brad Stock and his barking weapon, they escaped into the terrace, at the rear of the house. But the terrace was enclosed by an 8-foot-high chain-link fence, topped with barbed wire, and electrified, as a further escape deterrent. As shots whizzed by, narrowly missing them, they all scattered for cover. Jim Potter hid behind a row of trash cans, near the service door. Suddenly, one after another, the trash cans were pushed aside, and they tumbled to the ground, their contents spilling out in a flow of paper, old food containers, and other household refuse. Finally, the last barrel, the one Potter was hiding behind, was swept away. The cowering, crouching Potter gazed up and saw a shiny pistol, aimed right at his temple. "Oh, it's you," said Brad. "It's okay, Jim. Don't be afraid. I'm not going to shoot you. Go back inside. Sit down in the poker room, and wait until I'm finished outside." One after another, he rooted out the other players, and sent them into the house with the same instructions he gave to Potter. Finally, there was no one else in the yard but Brad Stock and Jim Hart. "You can't get away, Jim. I will get you, sooner or later. Come out now." Meanwhile, inside the house, the 10 frightened men speculated on what was happening outside. Finally, one man telephoned the police. 2 patrol cars arrived in less than 4 minutes. 8 officers streamed from the vehicles and banged on the front door, yelling the customary phrase, "Open up, in the name of the law." The door was opened by Brad Stock, who calmly said, "Come in, gentlemen." He guided them into the dining hall, and explained that the gunfire was merely the result of an attack by a group of raccoons on the rubbish barrels outside. "I fired a handful of rounds to scare them off," he said. The police asked the others in the room if they agreed that is what happened. They all nodded their heads in the affirmative. At the next meeting of the poker club, there was an empty chair. Al Jensen, the month's host, explained that the Hart family had moved to the West Coast. He reported that apparently John Hart had some money problems that nobody in the shoe knew about. Al Jensen said that the Hart house was foreclosed on, and was sold by the Cape Cod Bank to Marty Bannon. Bannon is the owner of the island's largest tourist attraction, a resort complex with several hotels, and a large amusement park. Al Jensen informed the other members that he had already contacted Marty Bannon, and told him that there is an opening in the shoe club and he is eager to join. "He will be with us at our next meeting." Then, Al Jensen said to Brad Stock, "Marty Bannon asked me to give you a message, Brad. He told me to tell you that every month he will be bringing cash with him to the game, and if he loses, he will be paying up, right away, on the spot. Brad," he said, "he particularly wanted you to know that."
And so closes Living in the Shoe, by Bill Russo. A tale of neighborly friendship and murder. Or was it murder? All the members of the poker group fled the terrace and went back inside the mansion, leaving only Bradstock and Jim Hart outside. Was it murder in the courtyard, or did Bradstock open the back gate and tell Hart to go west and never come back to Cape Cod? That's probably what happened. Because nobody can get away with murder, no matter how rich they are. Isn't that so? Either way, I hope you enjoyed the story and please come back again soon. Won't you?